Hvala svim uvodničarima. Sada sledi veoma interesantna diskusija o Evropskoj uniji, odnosno o sudaru vizija njene budućnosti. Učestvovaće ministarka Lilijana Pavlova, Ana Diamantopulu, ambasador KIF, a reč prepuštam profesoru Ivanu Vujačiću, koji će biti moderator ovog panela. Profesore Vujačiću, izvolite i predstavite vi sve učesnike. Da, mikrofon samo.
Više mikrofon, dobro je. Ja. Let me just ask the panelists to take their seats, please. Yeah. Well, whatever. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Okay, we only have an hour to discuss a very serious topic, and so hello to all the participants. Let's cut the protocol and get on with the job. I have some very distinguished members of this panel with me. First, Lilijana Pavlova. She was a minister of the Bulgarian presidency during the presiding by Bulgaria of the Council of Europe, of the European Union in 2018. She has a PhD in economics. She's been a member of the Bulgarian government for years, and she dealt with regional developments and public works. So, in short, I think this says plenty of her on her career. We have Ana Diamantopoulou. She's president of DICTO, Network for Reform in Greece and Europe, an Athens-based think tank. She's a civil engineer by training. She has been in the Greek parliament for years, 11 years, a European Commissioner for Employment, Social Affairs and Equal Opportunities between 1999 and 2004. She has taught at Harvard Kennedy School and was a Minister of Education, Lifelong Learning and Religious Affairs from 2009 to 2012. And also, let me mention this, Minister of Development, Competitiveness and Shipping. So she has vast experience in government and with the European Union. And of course, we have a well-known panelist here, who is the ambassador of the United Kingdom in Serbia. Has been with us for a long time, speaks Serbian extremely well, but we'll conduct this in English. And he's been ambassador to Georgia before, and the deputy head of mission in Moscow, which makes it especially interesting. And now he's been here for, I think, 3 years now. I think 4. He's been here for 4 years. So he's an old hand and knows our problems well. Now, what the topic of the panel here is sort of the clashing visions of Europe, and I would like to make a little statement on this. There's an American baseball player called Yogi Berra. Okay, I don't think any of you here know about this, but he made some very funny comments unconsciously in his lifetime. And one of them was, forecasting is difficult, especially because it's about the future. Okay. So with that in mind, with that little thought, we're going to try to make an assessment with our panelists on where is Europe going to be in the year 2025. And this has been set sort of as a date for the reform of its structure. So if you look at the white paper concerning this that was passed out last year, there are basically sort of 5 scenarios concerning this. One is we carry on like nothing has happened. We just muddle through and things stay more or less the same. The second one is we can't handle this. Sort of, I'm trying to be very, very brief and direct on this. We can't handle all of this the way it's going, so we'll just go back to a single market solution. And nothing above that, but nothing below that either. And then there's the scenario of whoever wants to do more together can do more. So we'll have a multi-layered Europe or concentric circles of European integration. In a way, we have that already in terms of the Schengen, in terms of the Eurozone, etc. And if those countries want to deepen their integration, they can do that. If not, they can stay out. Then there's the idea, let's do less but more efficiently. So let's concentrate on some of the problems and handle them and make them work. For example, really take care of the Eurozone and solve its problems. And then there's the fifth scenario of a deeper, more integrated Europe where people will be doing much more together. And so these are sort of the 5 scenarios, and of course a combination of these is possible. We'll talk about that during this panel. So without further ado, let me ask Liliana Pavlova first. She's been now part of the presidency, presiding of the European Union. How do you see these scenarios evolving?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you, dear Mr. Tsoumokas, dear panelists, ladies and gentlemen, your excellencies, distinguished guests. It is really an honor, a pleasure to be again here in Belgrade. Thank you very much for inviting me. Important topic as always, and it is really a very key moment to discuss this exact topic, because indeed it is whether we need and what kind of European Union we need is being questioned now. And maybe I will start from the end. My short answer here is that I personally do believe that more than ever we need stronger, more united Europe, which is more proactive, Europe which is more flexible, doing more, because this is a moment where we have to prove that 1 + 1 could equal to 3. Because if we are more united, working together, we can provide better security for our citizens. Because we see that all the concerns of the citizens, even the recent Eurobarometer study shows that our citizens are more and more concerned about the security and the protection of the borders and the situation with the terrorism. On one side, we see that in geopolitics, in global economies, we need Europe as a stronger actor on global economic scene. And if we want Europe to be strong on globally, we need to be united and to protect our European single market, and this single market should be adequate to realities of 4th industrial revolution and to digital transformation. And Europe should not be in a position to catch up, but should be proactive, should be transforming, and should be really enhancing and really looking forward. And throughout the presidency, Bulgarian presidency of the Council, I was participating in the different political experts groups, events, councils, etc. And there are 3 words which were always used as a conclusion of those events: unity, future, and stability. More than ever, we need more unity, more stability, and we are all focused on the future. But in order really to achieve this, in order to be successful in delivering Europe, we need brave decisions. We need really to have a clear vision where we want to go. We want to be sincere enough to say where we have made mistakes. We have to analyze where we are, where we were wrong, what are the next steps, and we have to have clear vision of Europe 2030, for example, or even 2050. And be really clear on how we are doing in economic terms, on growth, competitiveness, having in mind the 4th industrial revolution, the digital transformation, how we are delivering better on security, migration issues, etc., and how we are working on all the democratic values, on the European values, and how we will bring back the trust. This is the other important message I would like to say, because this is another point on which we will have to focus. So this is briefly really my short answer to this, because we will have time to discuss.
The short answer is, if I understood you well, is more. We should do more and
We
better.
should do more, better, and together.
Okay. How about I will pass this on to Anna, and she can.
Thank you very much, and thanks a lot for this invitation and participation in this very important conference. You asked where Europe will be in 2025. We have a saying in Greece which says, "Make me a prophet to make you a king." And this is exactly what happens now. It's very difficult to make prophecies, particularly because we live in strange times. And I think that it is important to see what we have exactly in front of us. I mean, the European elections. And it is obvious that there is a clash of visions in this journey to European elections. 25 years ago, maybe you all remember what Fukuyama has said. It was the end of history. So liberal democracy was on the march at that time, everywhere in the world, and there was no alternative. 25 years later, things are totally different. And I really suggest you a book, a very interesting book of a scientist of Harvard, Mr. Lavinsky. And the title of this book is How Democracies Die. So we are completely in a different situation. And what is the case now? It is that liberal democracy faces multiple internal challenges and external challenges. And not only in Europe, we can see in the European Union, we can see in each place of the world, from the United States to Philippines and from Asia to Balkans. And if we proceed with these internal changes, we can see that in many European countries now we have this rise of populist movements and populist parties. And of course we must be very careful when we discuss or try to define what a populist is, because it's not just a leader of a movement with extreme rhetoric and light rhetorics, etc. We have populist parties in governments in many countries, and this means that there are populist movements who change the constitution. They are constitutional movements, and what they are trying to do now is to undermine the liberal consensus, is to legitimize the European project as we knew it until now. And of course they claim to turn backwards to national policies, and this is something quite new for our era, but not for Europe. We have seen it before the First World War and between the First World War and the Second World War. Up until now, during the European elections, the dilemma was between the differences of the mainstream parties, the mainstream family, so with the Conservatives and others, the Social Democrats and others, and the discussion and the dilemma was the division between these two. This is not the dilemma for the elections of 2019. And here we have two major visions, if we can use the word visions. It is liberal democracy and populism. And there are these two major visions form the major class of the European debate today. This class can be explained with names and surnames, some of them quite new, some of them not. Up until now, the mainstream political parties in Europe have not given long-term and concrete answers to real problems, to the real new problems of the European people. What we can see in the European parties is that the conservatives try to take some of the agenda of the populists, particularly from the extreme right populists, and the socialists use the rhetorics of the past, and unfortunately the result is their collapse. Election all across Europe, as well as the recent results we saw in Germany show, make obvious that we cannot go on with business as usual. Ivan, you really referred to the 5 scenarios. And these are the scenarios we have in front of us. But what scenario will be accepted and implemented depends on what is going to happen at political level. And here, and this is my second part of the intervention, I think it is important to understand that the rhetorics of the existing mainstream parties in Europe are uninteresting to the people, because they do not even touch upon of the new big problems. And what are these new? I'm going to touch upon with a few words 4 major issues which, to my point of view, consist the challenge of the new narrative that we need in Europe. The first one is that we have to understand very well that the wealth of Europe is moving towards the East. That means that we have to change the production model, we have to boost the European exports, otherwise we shall not be able enough to finance our welfare systems, which is the core of the European model. The response to this question could be, on the one hand, go back to the national state. On the other hand, we have to have a more integrated Europe. But this will be one of the main class of visions and ideas during these European elections. The second one is the vast migration and refugee flows. This is a real problem in the discussions in all European members, even in the ones that have not even one refugee. The responses to this current start from the idea that the answer is the European policies, and that we have to work together and we can make migration a beneficial issue, and they can finish to the other end that we have to close our borders to everybody and come back to the national states. So this is a second class of visions that we're going to see in the elections. The third one is technology and the fourth industrial revolutions. Things are changing in an unbelievable speed. We can see now that the notion of neighbor, the notion of capital, the notion of investment are changing. And huge changes are coming to the labor market, and the first impact will be the welfare system and the way democracy works. I think there are only a few, very few leaders at the European level who really have understood that this is a first priority political issue and it is going to create huge inequalities. And the fourth issue is that homeland and national security. Mrs. Minister has already referred to that. I think, and of course it will be one of the major issues in these elections. Citizens feel insecure. Citizens feel that the mainstream parties and the way that liberal democracy is functioning cannot protect them anymore. They feel insecure about their lives, about their properties, about their future, about their children's future, and of course about the borders of their countries. So what are the answers to this issue? Again, it starts from an answer which says that the European policy and integration is the answer. So borders, Frontex, common asylum policy, dissemination, fair dissemination of refugees, immigrants, etc. And on the other hand is the need to go back to our national borders, our national militaries, and our national state policies. These elections will be really crucial, and the clash of vision will be very, very visible. Nationalistic ghosts are not only in Balkans. I mean, they're everywhere now in Europe. And I think that we have to be alerted not to speak and to act as usually, and to think a bit out of the box. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, those insights. And I think I'll make a short comment before I pass this to Ambassador Keefe. I think you've identified problems that Europe needs to face in this transformation that we were talking about, in these scenarios or a combination of them. But what it also tells us is that, and what I would like to comment on is the very sources of legitimacy of Europe. The legitimacy of Europe as we knew it were basically founded on A, pacification of conflict between states, B, pacification of class conflict within those states, as given by various types of worker participation, a coordinated type of capitalism. Thirdly, a welfare state to provide for this class pacification. And fourthly, the convergence of countries in terms of GDP per capita as they were approaching and being drawn into Europe. They converged. The lesser developed or the less affluent were catching up in terms of standard of living with those that are more developed. And now if you look at these pillars of legitimacy, as I like to call them, they're all gone. There's no Cold War. So pacification in terms of resistance towards, I don't know, potentially Russia through NATO is basically gone. The Cold War is gone, not the conflict, but the Cold War is gone and it will not come back. Ideology was a big part of it. That is gone. The workers' unions and everything is going down. Internal pacification is not the most important issue as it used to be in terms of labor capital relationships. The welfare state is getting trimmed. We get austerity instead of investment, and we see creditors versus those lenders, and we see a division between North and South, and the convergence is gone. So these are some of the issues that I think are important. That Europe as an idea needs a new legitimacy, and that this will probably come out through some of these scenarios. Now, the biggest difference in Europe that's immediate, obviously, is Brexit. It's a large economy, with a large population, an important, obviously, country, one of the major powers on the Security Council, and also a country that has played a large part in the Europe expansion and in the past. So this is the major, I think, first challenge that is coming up, and with that, I will pass this microphone to Ambassador Keefe and ask him first what kind of scenarios does he see coming out of these 5 futures, what kind he would like, and then maybe we can continue with Brexit and how he sees that.
Thank you very much. One of the advantages of having an issue like Brexit for a foreign ambassador is that you're continually asked about it, and so you get to do what ambassadors are best at, I hope, which is talking. But listening to the conversation so far, one thing strikes me as very important, and that is that the identification of the problems and the challenges that we face remains common, even if we are leaving the European Union. And what remains common to us and to all our partners in the European Union is a desire that Europe should be successful. In order for our vision of our future to succeed, we need a strong and successful Europe. And we need, by the way, a strong and successful Balkans that has integrated into Europe. That said, it's because we're leaving, not really my place to say which of those routes to achieving the desired outcome is the best one. We would like to see a Europe that is able to address the many problems, internal and external, that it faces, first of all. Some of them are, if you like, mostly internally generated, like the future of the Eurozone. Others are ones that are externally generated and shared by everyone, particularly the migration crisis. Though, let's not forget that in analysing that in economic terms, it's not an external, purely an external phenomenon. It's intimately related to the way in which economies work. We all share an interest in dealing with the other kinds of disruptive challenges to the way the world's work, the challenges that are coming from countries that do actually want to disrupt the system. From the point of view of my own career, I tend first to think first of Russia because of its disruption, and let's face it, because of some of the terrible things that have happened as deliberate choices by Russia, including most recently the chemical attacks in Salisbury. But we have to face the fact that having taken our decision that however many of the issues we share, we don't find the European Union as the right framework for us to deal with them. We have to accept that in Europe, decisions are going to be taken about the way European countries do it. I'm resisting the temptation to say you. I don't think we should be saying us and you, we and you, certainly not now, and I hope in the future. But how do we navigate our way through that? You know, if we're stepping outside the European framework for generating common visions, how do we contribute to developing the vision for Europe? And I think, in a very pragmatic British way, that we do it by what we do. We do it by demonstrating that when we say that what we want with Europe in future in the economic sphere is a partnership, a really special partnership, then it's up to us to see these negotiations, these difficult negotiations through and achieve the best partnership we can. If we say that, as we do, that we share deep security interests all across the whole range, from homeland security to geostrategic issues. If we say that we share those interests, then it's up to us to demonstrate that in practice by the way in which we cooperate, the way in which we, our police forces, our counter-terrorism forces, our forces dealing with organised crime, our armed forces, about how all of these work together. And by putting on the table, as we do, are very professional forces so that they're ready to work with people. It means too that we have to deliver on working together on challenges, on the international challenges that we face. We think that the solidarity that the UK received over the Skripal affair was a really strong demonstration of how it's possible to think, even when we are disagreeing about other things, to think about how to face the really disruptive challenges. Underneath it all, though, is this much deeper political question of legitimacy, of what is changing the way in which our countries operate. It was, I think it's a very good starting point to take what is happening in European Parliament elections to look at this, because it helps to frame something which can be quite difficult to grasp when you're looking at every individual country. And being a diplomat, I'm not going to start talking about the politics of individual countries, but you can see that old party systems are breaking down. And why are they breaking down? Well, one of my favourite lines for quoting comes from Sigmund Freud's introductory lectures in psychoanalysis, where he's talking about his early career and how, and he says at one point, talking about his time in Paris, he says, "I learnt in Charcot's clinic that every symptom has a cause," and I think there's a challenge there to be clear-headed about this. These political developments are not just happening because political developments happen. Hey, you know, people go up, people go down. There is an issue about how the system as it is run for the last few decades is perceived by people as not solving the problems. You know, we all know what the problems are. We can name them. The issues that arise from the 2008 financial crash, the migration issues, the increasingly non-rules respecting behaviour of some states in the world. Underneath it all lies this issue of people looking at us. Let's face it, we all belong to the European liberal elite, at us, and saying, you aren't cracking these problems, are you? And so that brings me back to the point I made earlier. What we've got to do is start finding pragmatic solutions that actually change the consequences for people's lives. I can go on forever.
No,
but stop
let me ask you, no, is this working? Is this working? No. This is working. It's working. Okay. Well, let me ask you while you're here with the microphone in your hand. Let me ask you a short question. Forecasting about the far future, obviously, as we said in the beginning, is difficult. But what about Brexit? How is that going to work out? That's coming up in 6 months. If there's no deal, it's a hard Brexit, right? And what is your, say, personal forecast on that? How's that going to play? Is it going to be the checkers model, or is it going to be something else? Just a quick yes. We're not going to hold you accountable. You can just, what's your whim? What do you see coming?
We're going to leave the European Union because that's what the British people have decided, and we will make it work because A, that's what we do. We have a long history of making things work, and B, we have a set of partners with whom we share deep interests and history. People sometimes say to me here, joining the EU is hard, the negotiations are hard, it's complex. And I say, you should try leaving. The negotiations are hard, they're complex, but they're driven fundamentally by our shared interests and our shared values, and that is why I am reasonably confident about the future.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador. Now, can you, this is working, I assume, yeah. Well, some people, they have different views on Britain, as you know, leaving Europe. I've heard de Gaulle quoted a lot saying Europe is a continent, Britain is an island. There was his reason for not, a quip that was underlying his reason for not allowing Britain to join. I've heard that actually Brexit is going to make Europe stronger because people are going to be more afraid of Brexit, and then this can then keep in line sort of other countries from assuming they can leave. Now, coming from a country that was close to what was called Grexit back then in the crisis of the Eurozone, how do you see Brexit affecting and just Britain leaving and these scenarios of leaving will affect the rest of Europe?
Thank you. Grexit and Brexit are two totally different issues, so I'm not comparing to them. As far as the Brexit is concerning, I think, and I would like to be very clear, that it is an historical damage for Europe, and I think for Great Britain as well, but I cannot judge the British political system or their decisions. I think that Great Britain had a huge role in the foreign affairs issue concerning the European Union, and of course in the military forces. It will be a big issue. I think Europe weakens on these two fields and has to make new plans in order to regenerate this in these to complete the gap in these two areas. Now, concerning the negotiations, again, I would like to be clear. I think that the European Union has to be very concrete and very hard. Since Great Britain decided to leave Europe, it means that she leaves. It cannot pick and chooses what it wants, and on the other side to leave what it doesn't want, because then it will be an open door, and each country, each member state can decide to take whatever it wants and leave. But and I would like to ask our British friend, do you believe that there is any hope that Great Britain will not leave? Because I don't know if it is my pray or it is what I want, but I think that things are changing, aren't they? I mean, in the British people, as concerning the British people.
Ambassador, would you like to react to that?
Well, of course, I can only give my government's answer to that, which is a decision was taken, and we're carrying that out. Obviously, our politics, if you look at it at the moment, is quite exciting. You know, that happens from time to time in even the best regulated countries. But I think, you know, our focus is on making this work.
Thank you. You know, one of the absurd things that happened this year was that there was a meeting of the Berlin process in London concerning the EU accession, and then in the middle of that day, when everybody was out there, Boris Johnson, the foreign minister, resigned on that very day when the Berlin process dealing with these countries of southeastern Europe were meeting there. But leaving that aside, I want to ask Liliana, basically, now let's move to our part of the world. Do you see these dates of 225 possible for Montenegro and Serbia to join, and others moving along more quickly in the direction of EU accession? You've been now very involved in the center of things, so please give us your take.
Thank you. Maybe just a few words on just one sentence on Brexit before moving to Balkans. Indeed, we really feel sorry for the decision of UK to leave. As well, my point will be, if there is a chance for the Brits to decide to stay, it will be the best option for EU and for UK, and this will be the best scenario if such a scenario is still possible. The good news as of today is that 80% of the agreement is negotiated between the chief negotiator and UK. Of course, the question on Ireland still remains open, and I hope that it will be solved, and it could be solved soon. But still, we have to be optimists, and we have to work on that more and more. So really, because it should be noted that Brexit is a precedent. In any case, UK will not be an ordinary third country for EU, and it will be a special partner as you correctly mentioned, for us it is a strategic partner for security reasons, for geopolitics and of course economic partner. But once an agreement is reached, it should be decided in all points. Once decided for all points, and for us in EU, it is important to keep the unity of 27. It is the most important point for the moment, is keeping the unity of 27 on one side, and this is a smooth transition to the next question, is stronger we are, better developed we will be, and if Europe wants to be strong on the global scene, we need Western Balkans countries on board with us, because Europe needs Western Balkans in the same way Western Balkans needs Europe. This is what we do believe, and this is when we were planning the Bulgarian presidency, the priorities, analyzing the priorities for the future of Europe debate. One of the important messages we wanted to convey, if we want united and strong Europe, it goes together with the message that we need to have Western, and we have to have Western Balkans on board. Without Western Balkans, we can't have united and strong Europe, because the future of Europe without the Western Balkans will be unstable. We will always have a black hole, as we call it, on the map, which is, from security point of view, from economic point of view, will always bring us instability. And in the moment, we need more than ever stability in favor. Bulgaria was always, how to say, natural mediator and driver and motor for the Balkans and for the European perspective of the Balkans. Because 1.5 years ago, the topic of European perspective of the issue of enlargement was not very positive point on the agenda. It was not supported by all the member states. It was not high on the agenda. It was not positively accepted by all the member states, and we were even questioned why we decided to have this back on the agenda if it is not a priority. But I'm happy to say that it was the best momentum we have selected to bring this point back on the EU agenda, because it is a decisive moment at the very moment. So understanding the problems of the countries of the region, we should say that all the countries in the Balkans did and invested a lot of efforts in the crisis, in the migration crisis of 2015. And they have worked a lot and supported us a lot in this moment. So we have to admit this, all the efforts which have been introduced in that process. In addition to the political commitment for the European perspective of the Western Balkans, which was important message we wanted to convey, and we are grateful to say that Sofia Declaration, the Sofia Summit, provided the opportunity to have this European perspective fully agreed by all the member states, which was a challenging moment to have all sitting together on one table, agreeing on the European perspective, and this to be a long-term agreement. For us, it was important to have at the same time something really practical to show concrete result, to show something concrete to the citizens of that region, because we are in the moment when it is not enough to have only political commitments. We need to show specific and concrete results to the citizens of the region. That's why Sofia Agenda was the other important tool which was presented and proposed, and we are grateful to say agreed in Sofia. Sofia Agenda provides an opportunity where we have agreed to have specific connectivity projects, transport connectivity, rail, road, energy connectivity projects, which were agreed in Sofia. They provide a good ground of specific and concrete projects, tangible results, so the people, so the citizens of the Balkans, the businesses of the Balkans could see what in reality in the next couple of years, what are the specific projects which will develop and support the region. Because in meanwhile, of course, the governments of the countries have to work and have to to deliver. Because your question was whether 2025 is realistic. I'm an optimist. It is a realistic moment for these countries. Of course, it's up to their own efforts. It's own merit-based principle is the principle we follow, but it's an opportunity for all of us to deliver if we are united and if we follow the steps and the right way together. If everyone will try to cheat, if I say, then it's no way to proceed.
Very good. Thank you very much. And I want to use this opportunity to thank the Bulgarian government and Liliana for making the tremendous effort of the Sofia summit and pushing this agenda. It was the first summit after 2003 in Salonika that put this region on the agenda. Thank you for that. A lot of people were not too happy with some of the things said there that turned them into somewhat more pessimistic mood concerning this. You know, the saying, a pessimist is a well-informed optimist. But thank you for your optimism. Now, I've heard some from well-informed people last week, for example, at the Belgrade Security Forum, some very qualified people that are basically saying, we will not make it in 225. It should be taken off the agenda as a goal because we're already too late. On the one hand, there's A, not enough pull from the European Union, B, there's not enough push from over here. And, and I will sort of share a certain mood that is present in some Belgrade circles, and I use the Varoufakis phrase, pretend and extend. We're pretending to reform, they're pretending to believe us and keep extending the date. And this is sort of a situation in which we are right now, but I don't want to poison the atmosphere, so I'll let Anna take a shot at how she sees the near future.
You used Varoufakis' phrase, but you saw what happened with Varoufakis' ideas. I mean, the country was 1 centimeter out of the European Union. So, yes, I was in this forum, and I heard many people saying that 2025 it cannot be the day. I believe that it is not so important to have a day. It is very important to believe to the procedure. I know that it is not very easy politically, because in politics we must always have some cornerstones, be them days or concrete results, etc. But in my experience as a commissioner in the period of the great enlargement, I had the opportunity and an experience to work with 10 different countries as they were trying to transform themselves in order to join the European Union. I can assure you that the transition period was so important. It is more important than when they access the European Union, because during this period a country can transform itself day by day and step by step, and even if we don't believe that there is the needed speed, this was the discussion for Serbia, for example, there is always somebody who pushes the member state, the candidate countries to do reforms, to make a step forward. So we have a famous poem in Greek, Ithaka, which says that Odysseus, when he went to Ithaca, to his home, this was not the great moment. The most important thing was the journey to Ithaca. So we must not undermine how important this transitional period is. So it could be 2005. No, it could be 2020 or 2030. The most important thing is that Serbia is transforming itself. And of course it is the responsibility of its own political system and of its own people that is so important that a way has been offered a way forward has been offered, and they can work with the European Union as all others have done in the past. We have done in Greece, Bulgaria has done the same, Romania. I can remind you how difficult things were with Cyprus, because now there is an internal problem in Serbia with Kosovo. We all know that this is a problem because it has external dimension, but this was the case in Cyprus as well. I remind you that nobody could imagine in Europe in 1999 that Cyprus could ever join European Union with the problem it had with the occupied periphery. But it became a reality. And all of a sudden, in 2 years, everything changed in the European Union, and Cyprus became a member of the European Union. So, if there is a strong belief and an effort to a concrete goal, which is so important for the people, I think that it is not 2025 which matters. And I don't believe that we pretend, I mean, when I say we, Europeans pretend that they are going to accept Balkans and the Balkans pretend they are going to enter the European Union. No, everybody needs everybody, and is extremely important for the security and the future of the European Union to endorse Balkans. Otherwise, it will be a black hole, as Mrs. Pavlova has said. Now, my last point. We in Balkans had a shared history of good and bad moments, and we have many wars. But when we work together, we can really achieve many things. Look, the Scandinavians, what they have done. They are people of the same area, and they have worked together for years and years. And it is not just a coincidence that two major events have taken place in Thessaloniki in 2003 and in Sofia last year, because it is Thessaloniki, the Greeks, who really care about the Balkans because it has to do with our lives and our future, and it's Sofia, which is Bulgaria, which is very important for them, what Western Balkans, what the future of Western Balkans can be. So let's be optimistic and let's work together we in Balkans in a different way than we did in the past, because we are Balkans, but we are Europeans at the same time, and we can play an important role and offer many things of our culture and of our history and of our ideas in Europe. So there is a potential here, and I think we can work together to make things better.
Thank you. Well, that was an inspiring speech. I'm old enough to remember the song "Everybody Needs Somebody Sometime," and I would really like to sort of come quickly to an end with this thought in mind. But before we do that, because we have to do a favor to our friend Tsomokos, I have to tell you, he's a Serbian in-law, okay? So these people get treated as royalty here by their families, not the rest of us ordinary people. Okay, so I'd really like to close this with a sort of a 1 minute, whatever anybody in the panel wants to say, because we really need to close, okay?
Thanks. There's so many points there from which one could start to talk, but I think I'll take a very pragmatic one and come back to the Western Balkans summit in London and the summit in Sofia that have both been mentioned. The important point about those, leave aside any political excitement that may have happened in July, the important point about those was that they were coordinated, that there was a relationship between them, that they were part of a whole arc of this year that started with the Commission's new strategy that went through the progress reports and so on. And the point that makes is that we all share a common interest in making this latest of the enlargements work. But I've got a challenge on this, because I've lived through many enlargements, starting with the British one, and I joined the Foreign Office just after the Greece joined, and I was desk officer for Greece. But it seems to me that every one of the enlargements so far has actually been as much about how the European Union thinks of itself and what its vision is, as it has been about the countries joining. When we joined, I think it was about making sure that all the big European powers were inside. It was, we're serious. When Greece and Spain and Portugal joined, it was saying, we are the democracies. When the great enlargement was Europe whole and free. And I think the next enlargement can also send a very clear message to the world about what the European wants to achieve. But at the moment, we tend to talk of it in slightly negative terms. We say, well, it's to avoid this problem. It's to prevent that from happening. I think there's a challenge to everyone in the European Union and the Balkans to formulate what's that big message that's going to bring it home.
Finalize the project.
Yeah.
One very short remark then as a conclusion. I do believe that we should not take Europe for granted, and we need to promote Europe. We need to take care of Europe, but we should start from us, from the Balkans. There is always something which could divide us in the Balkans. Immediately we can be fighting for something dividing us. We should find all the ways and all the things which could unite us, finding the best way. And I think there is a special group we need to target more and more. These are the young people in the Balkans. They are our future. They are the ones who are the drivers of tomorrow, the leaders of tomorrow. And I think the young people on the Balkans are those who can be really bringing us and bringing the Balkans in the EU more than ever and more successfully than ever.
Thank you. Anna, one short sentence or two?
Now, since we spoke in the beginning about clash of visions, I would like to finish with that and say that this clash of visions we have in front of us, so liberal democracy and populism, has to do with the future of Balkans as well, because liberal democracy is open societies, open borders, trade, economy, accepting of migrants, accepting of the difference of the others, means that we can be all together. On the other side, it is the clash of close everything, and it means we close the future for Balkans as well. So this clash of visions in Europe has a lot to do with what is going to happen in Balkans as well.
Okay, well, thank you for participating and sharing your thoughts. I'll end with what Anna inspired me with. Everybody needs somebody sometime. So please join me in thanking the panelists for their participation. I would like to call now my friend Milan Parivodic to take over and take his seat, because I think we've managed to keep this within perfect timing, yes.